You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the Enterprise episode, 2 Days and 2 Nights. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
And Father Cory Sticha. Hey, Father Cory.
How's it going?
Very good. And folks, be sure to stick around to the end of the episode. We have more of your great listener feedback that we've received. And I want to encourage you also to share the podcast with your friends. Help us grow this community and reach even more listeners, more Star Trek fans. When you share, that's the number one way the podcast grows. And I also want to tell you about another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy. If you like hearing us talk about Star Trek, come hear us talk about Doctor Who. And you can find that on The Secrets of Doctor Who, wherever you can find podcasts, or at sqpn.com/Doctor Who. So we are talking about this Enterprise episode. Jimmy, can you give us a recap of what happens?
This week, the main crew of the Enterprise spends 48 hours on Risa, and a bunch of boring, disorganized stuff happens in a script that goes nowhere. The end.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. However, I also prepared a slightly more complete one, which goes like this. This week, despite drawing random lots, a startling number of our main characters go down to Risa for a 48-hour shore leave, and the rest of the episode is taken up with meaningless side quests that have no satisfying resolution, and nothing interesting happens at all in the first half of the episode. Ultimately, Travis has a rock climbing accident that we don't even get to see. He has to be brought up to the Enterprise, and Dr. Phlox has to be woken from hibernation and treat him while he's not in his right mind. Hoshi goes to learn alien languages, and she meets an alien and hooks up with him. Malcolm and Trip go to find aliens to hook up with, but they get robbed by shape-shifting alien thieves. And Captain Archer meets an alien woman with a dog who asks him a lot of questions about the Suliban. Turns out she's actually a Tandaran spy, and so she drugs him so that he can't interfere with whatever she's doing, and then she leaves, and we never see her again. The end.
That's pretty much the both of those summaries are pretty much on target. I should mention this is the last episode of the first season of Enterprise. This is the final episode. So
I thought there was another one.
Oh, is
I thought
it?
there was one
this
more.
is 25. Right. There's one more after this.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Shockwave.
Right. Shockwave leads us into a kind of a cliffhanger.
Yep.
Anyway, Father Cory, thoughts, overall impression?
The first summary was more accurate. Porthos the dog is the only smart one in the whole group. The end.
The end. Okay. Jimmy, we've got a little bit of your overall impression. Can you give us a little more?
Well, I think that this episode is born of I think this episode illustrates a profound, passionate, overwhelming emotional need. And that emotional need is to fill 44 minutes of screen time. And that's it.
Yeah.
This is a waste of an episode. It does nothing to advance the plot. It is not entertaining. It thinks it's comedic, and it is not. And frankly, it's a waste of footage.
Mm-hmm. Couple of thoughts come to mind for me. They've been building up to this visit to Risa for the past 3 episodes, and I was expecting it's going to be a big deal when we get there. It's going to be interesting. They're going to have something that we're building towards, and I feel like they thought, let's have an episode where they're the first Starfleet crew to go to Risa, and that's all like the idea they had. And then suddenly the night before, like, we've got to write this script. Let's have something.
Even if that was their idea, that we're going to base this episode on they're the first Starfleet crew to get to Risa, I could do it better than they did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right. If that's what you're going for, then the Risians should greet them with some huge celebration. It's like you're this new race, and we exist here to deliver. It's a pleasure planet. We deliver pleasure to other races. You're a new race. We want to meet you. We want to learn all about you. We want to figure out your culture so we can figure out how to best please you. And the drama could come from that.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have given the episode a single organizing focus, other than here are several different groups of people on individual shore leaves that go nowhere. There is no central plot to this.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's all side plots with no main plot. And none of them end up with satisfying character-changing resolutions. You know, Travis is fine at the end. He doesn't change. Dr. Phlox doesn't change. Hoshi doesn't change. Malcolm and Trip don't change. And Archer doesn't change. No, there's no character development in this.
Mm.
And the closest thing we get to a plot is the Captain Archer thing, which looks briefly like it may go somewhere, since it's tying into his previous, experience in the Tandoori prison camp where you had to make chicken tandoori all day. But that ultimately goes nowhere. All what happens is once he figures out that the lady he meets, her name is Kayla, she's asking him all these questions about the Suliban, and she looks like she's a Trill, but apparently not. She's apparently not meant to be masquerading as a Trill because her spots are slightly different. But I thought she was a Trill for most of this episode. But she's asking all these questions about the Suliban, and she has this tragic backstory about how her family was killed by Suliban. And he thinks she's working for Dean Stockwell,
right?
Who was that character back in the Tandoori episode. And she tells him, "You don't know how wrong you are." She says, you're just completely wrong about all this. And she says it in a way that suggests she's telling the truth. He is wrong about what he's assuming. But then she's got razor sharp fingernails like a lot of women, only hers have poison on the end of them. And so she nicks his hand with one of her razor sharp fingernails, and he's now poisoned and drugged at least. And he passes out, and she says to the camera, "I'm going to check out now. I can't let you interfere." So she's got plans that she's executing that she doesn't want to interfere with. And then she leaves, and that's it. And we never find out anything. Well, what was he wrong about? What were her plans that she didn't want to? I mean, that could have been the central episode, the central story of this, but it's not. It's all side quests.
Why did she need him in the first place? What did he provide to her that she needed? How did she know he was coming and he was going to be there that she could waylay him?
And how did she get a Chihuahua if she's from planet Tandoori?
Exactly. I think they did say if I remember right, in the Tandoori episode that they were heading to Ryza.
Okay.
I think they did say that. So that's how they knew that they would end up there.
Somebody knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somehow she found out from them. It's
going back to the idea of this being the first time Starfleet goes to Ryza. If this was the real military, this would be the last time they would ever go to that planet, because every military installation has a no-go list. If someone who is assigned to that base goes to that bar, goes to that restaurant, goes to that location, they get in serious trouble, as in, minimum non-judiciary punishment, Article 15 in the Air Force, they call it, or even up to court-martial if it's something extremely serious. Ryza would get put on that list and should be on that list, because every Ryza story is like this. There's always, some crime or something going on.
The only one with a positive experience is Hoshi. Like, I was waiting for Hoshi's, the guy that she hooked up with to turn out to be some bad guy too.
Interspecies
relations.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's also a little bit of horror movie morality going on in this. In horror movies, at least I should say slasher movies, because there are horror movies that are not slasher movies. But in slasher movies, it's the young people who are engaged in immoral behavior who die first.
Right.
And the ones with pure moral motives tend to survive the film. Well, we have essentially that happening here, where you've got Malcolm and Trip are down here to be lascivious, and hook up with hot alien babes. And so they're all full of themselves and like, we're going to go sexually conquer and stuff. And they're the ones who end up the worst in this episode. They end up getting robbed by aliens who initially appear to be gorgeous women, but who then turn into creepy monsters that take their clothing and tie them up and leave them. Meanwhile, Hoshi, who has the purest motives, she wants to go talk to aliens so she can learn alien languages. And she's the one who ends up relationally rewarded by finding a nice guy and hooking up with him. So, okay, actually not Christian morality, but you see what they're trying to do here. Unfortunately, it's all meaningless. And Tripp and Malcolm's, hey, we're such hot studs subplot is painfully cringy. Yeah. It is not funny.
They are not cool. Tubbs and Crockett.
The outfits, the way I was saying earlier before we started recording, they remind me of Miami Vice. They were like Tubbs and Crockett from Miami Vice.
They're Tubbs and Crockett if they weren't cool.
Yeah.
Is what they were.
I wanted to see Mayweather's rock climbing on shifting rocks. That sounded kind of interesting.
We don't even get to see his accident. He just comes back and says, "Oh, I had an accident."
Yeah. And I didn't understand why can only half the crew go on shore leave. Do they have to go somewhere? Could we maybe stay here for 4 days and have to go down for two days and the other half?
That would have made more sense, and they didn't cover that either. And they shouldn't have even brought the issue up, frankly.
Yeah, they should have just gone on shore leave.
They and because they have this thing about Captain Archer at the beginning, he doesn't want to go down. His captain doesn't. I mean, they don't say it this way, but it's like the captain abandoning his ship, and T'Pol tells him, look, you had the same. Everyone had the same chance in the random lottery, and you happen to get it, and so did all of our other key bridge crew. Yep, they just shouldn't have brought it up. And if they did bring it up, they should have said, okay, we're here for 2 days. We're going to split it. Half the crew gets, if we need half the people on the ship to run it, then half of the people get 1 day, half the people get the other day. Or we extend it for 4 days and everybody gets 2 days. But they didn't.
Or you rotate people in and out where some people only get 1 day and, just whatever. But everybody at least gets a chance for shore leave. Yeah, how would you like to be the poor guy that's down in engineering? It's like, I haven't left this warp drive in, months, and now the boss gets to go off and have fun, and I can't.
I haven't seen the sky in forever. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, they should have prioritized it with people who got to go on away missions at the bottom of the rotation.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if a U.S. Navy ship pulls into Athens for a port visit, the captain gets to go and have dinner at a restaurant. You know what I mean? It's like there's nothing that says they have to stay on. Like the captain can't go ashore.
If that ship pulls into a shore visit, everybody on the ship can have a chance to get off the ship and go have dinner at a restaurant or drink at a bar or whatever.
Right. I am grateful that we didn't have a lot of talk about Horgons and that. Although the button for opening the door in the captain's room, his villa, vacation villa, was in the shape of a Horgon. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but we didn't have to deal with a lot of that. I mean, there were plenty of people sleeping around, but it wasn't like in your face like it was in TNG.
Yeah. I didn't like, but I couldn't help but being struck by, now apparently since this was towards the end of the season and they didn't budget well, like Star Trek doesn't do, at least in the classic era, they would not budget well. They weren't like Babylon 5. They were running out of money. And so apparently they wanted to do a lot more with this than they did, but I have to judge it based on what I see, not what they wanted to do. And what I see is not impressive, including the visuals. This looks like a California beach community, and that's it.
Yeah.
This looks it looks like a hotel. This is a hotel room, couple of rooms in a hotel. This is like what a bar is like in a hotel. This is like what a wine cellar is like in a hotel. This is like what a restaurant set is in a hotel, and that's it. This doesn't look like an alien environment. It doesn't, and unless you want to, and I guess you could, but unless you want to think of Southern California as a pleasure planet, this looks exactly like Southern California.
On a soundstage, which could be anything. Like they could have gone anywhere. And in fact, it was all on a soundstage. At least in DS9 Winter Riza, they shot some of that outdoors somewhere.
On a beach.
At least. Yeah.
Yes, I wondered if they actually had found some like beachside hotel or something like that they could film at, but they were sets, but it's just it wasn't there. There's nothing. I mean, even like the scene of the bay and everything there looked like an Earth bay. There nothing said that this is another planet.
Yeah. they would talk about things that sounded impressive. Like Kayla told Archer about some ship restaurant that comes into the bay every night and you swim out and eat off the deck. And okay, that sounded like it would be interesting, but of course we don't get to see it.
Mm-hmm.
The hot alien babes that Malcolm and Trip are putting the moves on, they talk about these underground, I forget what they called it, but like underground gardens.
Yeah.
Right.
But where all the plants are bioluminescent, and so it's really beautiful to look at. So of course we don't get to see those. Malcolm talks about, Travis talks about his shifting rock wall that shifts and changes pitch as you climb it. Musical pitch as you climb it, and so we don't get to see anything. It's like, okay, this is just a standard bunch of Earth-looking sets.
I don't think it was musical pitch. I think it meant like literal pitch.
Yeah. Oh, well, I took it as musical, but okay.
Yeah. Well, and admittedly, the underground garden was a bait and switch, so that's understandable why we didn't see that. But it's just, there was so much. Well, they walked on, Archer and the spy walked along the beach, and we don't see anything of them walking at all.
Right.
It's just the next scene is they're sitting in his room, and she had twisted her ankle.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
everything. So this episode is a series of bait and switches.
Yeah.
The one thing I was reading on Memory Alpha about this is that they modeled the subplot with Archer and Kayla off of To Catch a Thief, which is a 1955 Alfred Hitchcock movie about Cary Grant and Grace Kelly. And so you do have a man and a woman and a mystery in To Catch a Thief, but there's one really big difference between To Catch a Thief and what happens in Archer's subplot. Something actually happens in To Catch a Thief. Yes. And we get we not only learn what the mystery is, we get a resolution to the mystery. And here we don't know what the mystery is, and we don't get it resolved.
Well, and again, speaking of Memory Alpha, they talk about how from the beginning, I think it was the writer, who wrote the teleplay, Chris Black, says, from the beginning, we wanted to do a shore leave episode. And that, like I was saying before, we wanted to do a shore leave episode, and so we had to kind of make it up, and we don't know where to do it. Well, we can't do the shore leave planet because that the Enterprise from TOS was the first to visit that planet. We don't want to do Wrigley's Pleasure Planet, which is mentioned in Mantrap, because that sounds too human. Wrigley is,
a human name.
Yeah, and so
and a gun.
Let's do Risa. And it's like, okay, so what are you doing? Like you said, Jimmy, it would have been more interesting to the first encounter with Risa, but with humans, because Risa has been kind of made into this by this point between TNG and DS9. It's been kind of built up a bit. So show us the origin of all of these tales of Risa.
And I say that I'm not a fan of the Risa episodes. I've always had distaste for the innuendo about Risa. But you could do it. If you're going to do a shore leave episode, you need a main plot.
Exactly.
And just showing us what people do on their shore leaves is not going to make for a satisfying episode. It would be like if you imagine the original shore leave episode from the original series, where all we got was, here's Dr. McCoy and what he does on shore leave, and here's what Sulu does on shore leave, and here's what someone else does on shore leave, and we never learn about the overarching plot.
Right.
I mean, the difference between the shore leave planet and what we get in this episode is the shore leave planet people have an idea about how to interest and entertain their visitors. And the Risens are much more passive. They're just like, okay, we're going to sit back and run a hotel and let people come here.
And if you get robbed, if you get you fall, if you get hurt, oh well.
Yeah, The concept of a planet of people who are all about hospitality and entertaining other cultures, that's an interesting idea.
Yeah. And
that you could do something with that. We had a little bit of too much Roddenberry in the initial conception of Risa, so we got that. But But I like the idea of this, a planet where we're all about hospitality. Where like tourists don't bother us. So many places that are very tourists love to go to in our place, in our world. There's a lot of people there who are like tourists. They're we love their money, we just don't love their behavior or whatever. It would be interesting to see a culture that's all about tourists, all about entertaining people and that sort of thing.
And it would be interesting to see the Rysians try to apply things that they've used with other cultures and spectacularly fail.
Yeah,
like for example, we already know Vulcans have been here. And like Vulcans say that no one leaves this one restaurant or one bar unhappy. And okay, so they go to that bar, and the Rysians are, the Vulcans. Oh, great! And they try Vulcan entertainment. So they bring out the weird looking harps and sitars and play contemplative philosophical songs. About math. and it would be interesting to see them, or the Klingons. Okay, well, and then they try a bunch of Klingon entertainment, which also spectacularly fails. I mean, that would be far more interesting than what we actually got.
Right. I wonder if we'll ever see Risa in like Strange New Worlds or something. Where they I wonder a modern treatment of it.
I hope not, but
yeah, it might be worse. Just now that I think about it.
I was thinking Lower Decks because I know we've seen it in Lower Deck, or I thought we did.
That's true. Yeah. So Phlox, denobulins go into hibernation occasionally, and it's usually, what do you say? It's like usually 6 days.
6 days a year, but he can get by on 2.
Right. And he doesn't even get the full 2. They have to wake him up, and they have to wake him up to treat Travis.
He's having an allergic reaction to a drug they gave him after his rock fall.
Which I like the fact that they've thought about it, like getting alien medical treatment is maybe not always a great idea, since they have no idea about our biochemistry. That's good.
Especially for something like he had a broken leg or a sprained leg or something, and it's like, I'm sorry, I need a human doctor for this. I would potentially accept medical care from an alien if I was about to die. But anything else, if I'm not about to die, I'm going to wait for a human doctor.
Right. And maybe setting a leg, a broken thing, but injecting me with anything, no.
Yeah.
I'm saying a no to that. So he's having this reaction. And you've got Groggy Phlox, which, I suppose Groggy Phlox is better than no Phlox and dying, but, he's being treated by this guy who's impaired. It's like he's drunk.
I like John Billingsley though when they wake him up though. That was pretty funny. That was some pretty good stuff. He's such a good comedic actor like that.
Yeah. John Billingsley he's sometimes he's wasted his Phlox with the writing, but he can be pretty funty.
His was some of the best material. Unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of it. It wasn't our main plot, and it ultimately fell flat, I thought, because it's fun to see him being basically stoned when he first wakes up, and he's having these bizarre emotional reactions and misunderstandings. But then he starts treating the patient like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you don't treat the patient until you're recovered. and that's where it went off the rails for me.
Exactly.
Yeah. We had I think this is the last appearance of Kelly Waymeyer as Cutler.
Yep.
Who I enjoyed as a character, Cutler.
She's Phlox's assistant.
Yeah. Sadly, she died of an unexpected medical condition. Later the year this was made, this came out, so she was passed away. May she rest in peace. But I always enjoyed her. She was an interesting secondary character, and I wish Enterprise had brought more of them forward into the show than they did. I know it's a big cast and all that, but you can have occasional background characters. I mean, they kind of did that with the Marine Major. What's his name? The next season.
Well, and that's something we've discussed about with DS9. That's some of the attraction of DS9. Why DS9 is so beloved is because they do develop these secondary characters like Nog, like Rom. But Garrett. You don't see that in Enterprise. You don't see that in Enterprise at all.
Although in John Scalzi's novel Red Shirts, the characters note that and they So if you haven't read Red Shirts, it's about lower deckers who start to realize the upper deckers are like magically protected from danger, and it's all of us who die. Mm-hmm. And then they have to deal with that, and they end up crossing over into the universe. They realize basically that they're on a television show.
Yeah.
And they end up crossing over into the universe where the television show is made and start talking to some of the actors who play them. And they start noticing it's like, oh yeah, I recently did get to go on an away mission, didn't I? And yeah, that's because they're building me up for a few episodes in order to kill us off in 3 or 4 episodes.
Yep.
So, one other thing I should note is this episode was directed by Michael Dorn, who played Worf. He'd previously directed 3 DS9 episodes, but this was his last Star Trek directing credit, which probably for a reason. It's not all his fault.
Well, no, Enterprise got canceled.
Right, but
right.
He didn't get anything in the next 3 seasons, though. Yeah.
Right, and he also hasn't done anything in the new Paramount Plus era as well. He hasn't come back to direct anything. I don't know if he's done any other directing at all besides Star Trek. That's actually
I think he has, but I don't know.
But this one didn't go well for poor Michael Dorn, who it's by all accounts a pretty cool fellow outside of his Worf costume.
I didn't fault his direction at all. Now I tend not to notice direction unless it's really good or really bad. But I didn't find reason to fault his direction in this. I think it was just a horrible script.
Yeah. TV directing I found is different from movie directing. That TV directors have much less overall influence on the way it comes out than a movie director does.
Yeah. A movie director is viewed as an auteur, as he's the one in charge of the vision of the film. But that is not the case with TV directors.
Right.
I think that's kind of changing more. I think individual episodes, they do get a little more flexibility. Again, not to the level of a movie by any stretch of the imagination. They're still stuck within the series Bible. They're still stuck within the showrunner. But we can think of episodes from things like Discovery that they did do some more creative things with cameras and lighting and things like that, where they do get a bit more flexibility now than they did, say, back then.
Yeah. But for back then, this actually has some interesting it has little bits of interest in the direction that even I noticed, like Archer's room in the complex is on a different level than Kayla's. And so they both have balconies. And if you go out on the balcony, Archer has to look down to talk to her. She has to look up to talk to him. And that's different. They could have put them on the same level, you know, but this makes for a little more visual interest.
Right.
Not as much as you see in some sci-fi shows. Like I saw something once on the direction that was used in Blake 7, and how, and I won't remember all of it, of course, but they would point out things as like, oh, we're shooting through a staircase, seeing people's feet descend the staircase, and that's not a typical establishing shot, close up, counter close up, back and forth and back, then establishing shot, close up, counter close up, back and forth. It's something that's a little more creative than that. Also, I remember, they would do that. They would do interesting directorial things in Columbo back in the early 70s. Like there's one episode where Robert Culp kills a woman in her apartment. He's not planning to do it, but things go badly and he kills this woman. And he's wearing these ginormous 1970s eyeglasses. And we see different images in the pane of each glass of him thinking through what he's going to do now to cover up the crime he's just committed. And between watching back and forth between the images in his eyeglasses, we see the complete plan of how he's going to get rid of the body and so forth, and clean up the evidence. And that, that's creative. That's some creative direction. I didn't see a huge amount of creativity in the direction here, but I thought it was competent.
The other thing I want to note about is that T'Pol gives Archer a book to read while he's relaxing on vacation. The Complete Teachings of Surak, translated into English by Skan, father of Sarek, father of Spock, which is interesting. So Spock's grandfather.
Little does she know it's not the complete teachings.
Yep.
Yeah, because later on, she's the one who tells Archer that a lot of his teachings have been lost, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but in season 4, we get to meet Surak, and it turns out that he's got this Katra arc with his real teachings that have been covered up, and it causes a Vulcan Reformation to launch in season 4.
That's right. Yeah. So I have a feeling that the complete teachings of Surak would help me relax, not in ways that T'Pol did not anticipate.
Catch up on your sleep. Yeah,
exactly. Sorry, it's not my bag. Any other notes on this one, Father Cory?
The dog is still the smartest, which is very much out of character for beagles. If you've ever had beagles,
Porthos the dog, not the other.
Yeah, not the rat dog.
Well, I don't count that as a dog. That's a rat that they call a dog. The dog is still the smartest. If you've ever had beagles, you would know that that's definitely out of character for beagles. Beagles are the second stupidest dog, according to Dog Fancy magazine. And that tells a lot about this. It tells a lot about this story. I want to say it's pugs or something like that. It's one of those little dogs, like maybe it's that little rat terrier dog or rat chihuahua or something.
Yeah, that's a weird scene where the two dogs. So somehow, even though they're on different levels, the other dog, and we're told once that its name is Rilo, has gotten up onto the balcony and is having a face off with Porthos.
She threw the dog up there.
Could be, but the two dogs are like growling at each other, and they got their teeth bared, and they're panning back and forth between their faces as if they were human actors, and it's just such a weird little scene. Yep. I still want to know how she got a Chihuahua. There was something else that was connected with all that,
and that's all I've got.
According to the University of Helsinki paper on dog intelligence, as recorded in 2022 in Scientific Reports Journal.
Okay, so this is a newer one then, yeah.
The dumbest dog breeds are, in order from dumbest, is Basset Hound, Mastiff, then Beagle.
Oh, okay, Beagles have moved up one, because this was probably about 10 years or so ago when I saw the article.
Not quite as dumb as they used to be, but still up there. Followed by Pekingese, Bloodhound, Borzoi, Chow Chow, Bulldog, Basenji, and Afghan Hound.
That sounds about right.
And, of course, smartest is Border Collie, which, Poodle, German Shepherd, Golden Retriever, Doberman, Shetland Sheepdog, Labrador Retriever, Papillon. I don't even know what a Papillon is. Rottweiler. And
it's a butterfly.
They're a little small dog. They're no little small dog. Yeah.
Australian Cattle Dog is number 10.
Yeah. And you'll notice these are working dogs, and especially things like colliers and shepherds, border collies and shepherds. They're meant to patrol areas and solve problems on their own and like herd animals and stuff. So we've selected them for intelligence.
Yep.
Although bloodhounds are working dogs too, but they're one of the dumbest.
So they're just trackers.
They're more dependent on the human making the decisions. Whereas if you're out guarding a flock of sheep, and the shepherd is not there, you've got to make the decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And so my sister has an Australian shepherd, which is among the smartest, and they've run into, and she picks things up very quickly. They've run into problems with dog training where the training technique is designed for a dog that is not this smart. And Luna, that's my sister's shepherd's name, is so smart. She figures out the trick before they finish teaching it and won't respond to the commands correctly because she knows in some of the training, you're supposed to like put your foot over the treat until the dog does what you want. And Luna figures out, oh, he's put his foot over the treat. He's not going to give it to me. Okay, I'll just relax.
You can tell how mediocre an episode is by how far afield our discussion goes.
And
all right, so, Jimmy,
the dog conversation was more interesting than the episode.
Yes, it was actually interesting. Jimmy, any final notes on the episode?
Nah.
Okay, let's get to our feedback.
I know what it was.
Oh, okay.
They don't, in order to build this artificial sense of mystery with who is this woman, she doesn't initially tell Archer her name. which is stupid. And he says, I don't even know the name of your dog. And she says, it's Rilo. And we never see the dog again from that point. So this is useless to tell us the name now. But this is, I'm guessing the writer didn't own dogs, because this is not how dog owners operate. If you have two dog owners meet and their dogs are there, the first thing you do is tell the other person the name of your dog.
Yep.
Right.
And that has a social function. It also, although the dog owner may not realize it, has a practical function, because essentially her dog has gotten into Archer's territory and he needs to know the name of the dog. So if it comes back, he can say, Rilo, stop, or whatever, but he needs to know how to get the dog's attention. And so the first thing dog owners do, really for social purposes, but it also has a practical function, is they tell the other person the name of their dog.
If I thought that the writers were doing a better job, I would have said this was supposed to be a clue that Caleb brought the dog only as a way to connect with Archer, because he's known to be a dog owner. I would, if I thought they had thought about this through, which clearly they haven't. So we'll leave it at that. Let's get to our feedback. This was feedback on our recent episode from the TOS episode, This Side of Paradise. The first one comes from Truly Awesome New Mexico Catholic on YouTube, who writes, thanks for another great episode. I actually would rate this much higher than you all do. See, I use that correctly, unlike McCoy. The Spock parts are really great. Also, I think I like it because it has a similar premise as Marion Zimmer Bradley's Darkover novels, but without the weird physical relationships. Finally, there's an easy headcanon fix for the Spore's symbiosis. There must be primates somewhere on the planet that are similar enough to humans for the spores to have symbiosis with them and also affect us. Thanks again.
Yeah, I agree. There must be primates in the evolutionary history of these spores for them to work on humans. I don't know that they would be on this planet, though, because of these. I believe they established that these are traveling between planets. However, even there, I don't think I wouldn't be entirely satisfied with the headcanon fix, because if you're traveling between planets, you never know what kind of life you're going to encounter. And your evolutionary survival strategy cannot be dependent on finding something like primates. It needs to be broad spectrum. You need to be able to interact with almost any organic creature you encounter.
Okay. Tammy LML writes via YouTube, this is one of my all-time favorite TOS episodes, and just listening to y'all discuss it kept me smiling for a solid 42 minutes. After that statement, I think it'll come as no surprise that I loved especially the discussion about McCoy and all y'all. I'm a South Carolinian, and after Clemson won the National Football Championship recently, my family bought t-shirts that say, we beat all y'all. It's just the perfect superlative if y'all ask me. P.S. All of my favorite podcasts come from SQPN because y'all are great. Keep up the good work, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. We'd like to take a moment now to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Trek, including Father Michael D., Joe M., John F., Paul J., and Susan D. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. We'd also like to thank Victor Lambs, who edited this episode. So that's it from us. What did you think of 2 Days and 2 Nights? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek, our Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Send an email to trek@sqpn.com, or visit our Discord community at sqpn.com/discord, or you can watch The Secrets of Star Trek on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia and leave a comment there, while you also hit like and subscribe. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the original series episode, Space Seed. Until then, Father Cory Sticha, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Star Trek.
Thank you, Dom.
Jimmy Akin, thank you as well.
Thank you. Live long and prosper. And just for the record, I am not seeking Jamaharong. I don't even know what that is, and I don't want to know.
And that's not a Horgon. And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest. And remember, Captain, you need a vacation.